sure I have my right slides. I do have my right slides. Okay. Let's say hi. 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 I'm Kristen. It's good to see all of you. Sam, Amy, Teresa, Holly, great to see you. Rich, Tim, good to see you. Good to see the rest of your names. Scott, Michael, Morgan, David, Nicole, Emily, and your face. Great to see you all. We're talking about burnout today. I sound really upbeat right now. I was just in a really great meeting before this, so it set me up really well for this energy. So I'm Kristen Croyle. I'm the Dean for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. If you haven't had a chance to meet me yet, I don't think that is true of anyone in this room, but since he's recording. That's who I am. I'm a clinical psychologist. That's my background. And we're talking burnout today, which is, uh, let's just say, an ever fresh topic for many of us, right? And you're welcome to jump in at any point, ask questions, or have suggestions. And I will also be sharing my slides, including a slide at the end that is a resource slide. So there's my intro. I think we're good to go. So I'm going to share my screen. And starting with so I have a few, I love comics. I just love comics. And The Awkward Yeti is one of my favorite comics. The guy who draws it is just amazing, and he'll often draw different parts of the body in conversation with each other. So here is our um, our comic to start the day. Which I think is a really great start for a conversation about burnout, that you don't really feel like yourself. And I love that Heart is like that. And if you don't read Awkward Yeti, this is literally called Heart and Brain. Those are the characters. That Heart says, the world is really missing out when I don't feel like myself. So there are a lot of different things we could focus on. We could spend many days, we could spend many years talking about this topic together. But what I'm going to focus on today is about rebuilding. So let's say that you know that you've experienced burnout. Um, what are the next steps for you? And the image that I've selected here is a kintsugi bowl. Um, and many of you are familiar with this. This is the concept of repairing broken pottery using gold or some other precious metal or like lowercase precious substance, so that what you have is a beautiful work of art, which I also think is a great idea, a great concept for rebuilding after burnout. So we will talk briefly about like the some of the foundational literature in burnout, but we're going to spend most of our time on rebuilding. So, what is burnout? It's in general a prolonged response to chronic situational stressors on the job. The World Health Organization describes it as an occupational phenomenon, that it's about job person fit. In other words, it's not a mental illness. So, it's not something that is within you, it's not a medical condition, it's not an individual weakness. It's about job person fit. And in some jobs or under some conditions, it's difficult to think of anyone who could experience that job without having burnout. Um, so uh, it's a workplace phenomenon, not not mental illness. Much of the work in burnout, much of the foundational research work is based on Christina Maslach's work at UC Berkeley. And Christina and Michael Leiter, her collaborator, have really driven research in burnout since the 1980s. There have been a number of people who have kind of jumped off of that work, but you'll still find the foundational work from Christina Maslach and Michael Leiter. So, one of the things that they looked at were the components of burnout. And there's a burnout self report measure called the Maslach Burnout Inventory that assesses these three components, which you can take online if you want to, but you don't actually need to because as we talk about the three components, you may recognize some of these in yourself. And since it's not a mental health diagnosis, we're not talking about meeting criteria or not meeting criteria or whatever. This is an experience which you can say, yes, I identify with this experience, or no, I don't. So in general, the three components of burnout are exhaustion, cynicism, and ineffectiveness. So, for exhaustion, and I put in a few examples here of items from the Maslach burnout inventory. For exhaustion, one of the items is I feel emotionally drained. Another item is I feel tired when I get up in the morning and have to face another day at work, or I feel used up at the end of the workday. Cynicism, one of the items, which I've adjusted for a university setting, is I've become more callous and uncaring towards my students and colleagues. Another item on the inventory, I don't really care what happens to some of my students, or I worry that work is hardening me emotionally. So cynicism is partly about like emotional detachment, that you're creating much more emotional space between you and other people, including people that in theory you might care about. And ineffectiveness, here's one of the items again from the Maslach burnout inventory. I feel like I am not accomplishing worthwhile things. Other items include things like I do not feel like I am positively influencing others. I feel like I am not accomplishing worthwhile things. I feel like I am not helpful to my colleagues. Those kind of themes. And although all three of these are components of the burnout experience, people often kind of lean into ones more heavily than others. So, for example, men tend to lean a little bit more towards the cynicism. Women tend to lean a little bit more towards the exhaustion. Personally, ineffectiveness is one of the things that is a big indicator for me of that I'm experiencing burnout when I feel like nothing I do is going to make a difference, or that none of these ideas are good ideas. Um, I know that that's uh, burnout speaking, because all of us have good ideas. If we feel like we have no good ideas, that's not a fact. That's just a feeling. So, briefly, we'll talk about some contributors to burnout, and then we'll talk more about different things that we can do. So, one contributor to burnout. I mentioned that it's about job person fit, but the research from Maslach and Leiter looks at fit in different areas of the work. So, for example, fit in workload. So, if someone is a person that thrives when they're working 40 hours or less, and the requirements of the job to do a good job require 60 hours, that's a recipe for burnout right there. Or fit in values. So, if it's very important to you that you are at a value driven organization that aligns with your personal values, and the organization is heading in a different way, then that can contribute to burnout. Community, a number of us experienced increasing levels of burnout during and following COVID, because the ways that we experienced community were different than what we get satisfaction from. So, not being able to see people in person, or not being able to see them as frequently in person, reduced our feelings of community. So, there's a lot of different ways. And in working with companies, Maslach and Leiter help different companies assess these different areas, see where they're really struggling, and then help them develop uh, uh, different approaches that they could use to reduce burnout across the workplace. Of course, there are additional or specific factors that could contribute to burnout that are specific to the individual, um, such as outside of work responsibilities like caregiving. So, if you're already emotionally exhausted because of caring for elderly parents or young children, then an emotionally fraught workplace can contribute more to burnout than it would for someone who doesn't already have those emotional burdens, previous job history. And in that sense, I mean like traumatic job history. if you were if you were a recipient of workplace bullying in a previous job, you may be more reactive in a current workplace to um, interactions that are not good. They're not, it's not okay that they're happening, but you may feel them and notice them more than people who don't have that background. But as I said, this is a workplace phenomenon that we feel and experience individually. So now we're going to talk about moving forward from burnout. I like this image because when I've had experiences of particularly high burnout, I kind of feel like a tree that's been pruned, like the ones that are like really aggressively pruned. Like this tree needs to grow in a different way. So this is a picture of before pruning and after effective pruning. This is a good pruning picture of an apple tree. Um, and I like this also because there's some hope here, right? That we prune because we know that the tree may be more healthy and grow in a more positive way after pruning. So when I have had experiences of higher levels of burnout, I try and keep this in mind that maybe this is an opportunity for me to think about how to grow in a different way in the future. So we're going to focus on 4 different groups of strategy. One is refocusing on why. Another is exercising our own power. A third is taking care of ourselves. And a fourth is like straight up antidotes. So this is my cue to you. Be ready to write because I'm going to ask you to write some things. And if you want to share some of the things you're thinking about, we'll have opportunities to do that. But if you don't want to, that's completely fine too. But I would recommend that you write them down for yourself. So let's focus on the first one. So the first aspect is refocusing on why. So for right now, and I've got my pen, I got my paper, so I'm ready to write here myself. Uh, let's spend just a couple of minutes privately making some notes. What brought you to academia? What excites you about your job? Where do you think that you really make a difference? You don't have to answer all these. These are suggestions of how to refocus on your why. You could pick another suggestion that just in your own head about what brought you here. What do you still think is cool about your job? And if you can't get there, at least what brought you here? Okay, 30 more seconds here. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing just for a minute so we can see each other. Would anyone like to share anything? You don't have to. There's no expectation here. Would anyone like to share anything that speaks to this? And feel free to just unmute yourself if you want.
Maybe I can say a couple of things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I joined academia because I love science. I love to discover new things, and I like to share this with others.
excellent.
Yeah.
And I forgot, since we didn't get a chance to introduce ourselves, Ali, can you say who you are for folks who don't know
Yeah,
you?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm Ali or Ali Reza from the chemistry department. I'm a physical chemist, so my research is like between chemistry and physics. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to share something?
I will. Jackie Wallace, Career Services. I also support our exploratory undeclared students on campus, which is full circle for me when thinking about working in higher education. That I was an alumni at Oswego, and I wasn't ready to leave, and I wanted to give back. And I found a lot of energy and excitement around engaging, providing hope and opportunities for current students.
Excellent. And I'll say, what originally brought me, I just like working with students. I think they're really awesome and exciting, and they have so much potential. And the longer I've done it, the more I know we're teaching and helping grow. And it's not all about the job. But for me, it actually is kind of all about the job because the impact of education on economic mobility, that's a real thing. This is the way that our students change their families and their future forever. So helping them learn and grow, absolutely, and get the job so that they can earn the money and have food and housing, medical care, and all the good stuff. I'm very passionate about that. And it's you folks that all make that happen, which is why I like to work with faculty and staff. Okay. Look.
I'm Michael Hurley from the math department, and I went into academia because I enjoy teaching and sharing knowledge and technique of sharing knowledge and learning knowledge with others. I'm excited about my job when I get the ability to share and demonstrate new knowledge and topics with different people with as many different classes and topics as possible. And I think I make a difference when I get the opportunity to teach new classes and attend new campus activities and visit different conventions because I'm getting a chance to try new things and find new ways to incorporate them into my teaching.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. Okay, I'm going to reshare.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it was mine said connecting to audio. So Holly Stone with Campus Events and Conference Services. And I joined, I have a love of learning. I feel like I have a lot to offer as well, but I love the different views that I've learned from students, faculty, and staff. And I love to be in a place where you can work with a lot of different departments and have the opportunity for collaborative efforts across the board.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Holly. So let's go to a second group of strategies. The reason I start with reflecting on your why is because that actually can be the foundation that keeps you going sometimes, right? Like, why am I these committees and these emails and so much bureaucracy and like trying to get this stupid Adobe form to work and I cannot get my signature in there. Just remembering it's all for this reason. It can get you out of that funk. So the next group of strategies that we're going to talk about is exercising our own power. We often have control in our jobs that we can leverage. And actually, control is one of the pieces that can feed into burnout or help protect us from burnout. So this is one of the reasons we're talking about it. So we can sometimes exercise control, especially in academia, that we don't often recognize, and that control can help to armor us against some burnout experiences. So one way that we can exercise some control and reduce burnout is through protecting our own time and resilience. For example, I worked with this really amazing faculty member at another institution who was so devoted to students that she had literally an unending stream of students every day at her office. And she would tell me, I don't even have time to go to the bathroom. And I did not shake her because that would be an irresponsible workplace thing for me to do. But I wanted to shake her. It's like, that is actually under your control completely. And your students need to know that your health is more important than dropping everything at that exact moment. Because we're talking like walk out of your office for 10 minutes and say, I'll be back in a few minutes. I don't have time to go to the bathroom and I don't have time to eat. Those are things that we can set up in our workplace environments, no matter how crazy it gets. Plus, they're legally protected. So if you say, I need to take a break to eat, you're legally allowed to do that. Another way that this can come through is things like for faculty, when your chair says, I really need somebody to pick up this extra class. That is absolutely true. And it's your chair's job to figure that out. It's actually not your job if you're not the chair. You can sign up for that extra class if you really want to, but you don't have to. You can say no to that. I also worked with a wonderful faculty member who was hired. We were both hired as assistant professors on the same day in the same department. And one thing that I learned from him was how to say no to stuff. He said no to all kinds of things that I was saying yes to. And one of the things he said no to was working with a lot of students in research. And I had a much larger, I was willing to work with any student who came to me. I still would do that, by the way, but this was how he protected his time. I will work with you if you will do this and this and this first, and like sign up for credit for research, do this and do this. And that was a very short list. So there are ways that we can protect our own time and resilience. Are you going to do emails on weekends? You're not legally obligated to do that. You can tell people, I don't do that. You can tell your students, I'm not going to respond to your email on weekend. I will respond to it on Monday though. Are you going to work holidays? That's up to you. It's actually not up to the institution. All of this is privilege, by the way, right? Privilege of our setting. There are some jobs, certainly, that don't have these privileges. And there are some jobs at the university that don't have these privileges. We have facilities folks that have to work no matter what the weather is, and no matter if it's a holiday, and CTS folks. But if you've got this if you have control in your job that you can leverage it. We also can benefit from a periodic refocus. Faculty in particular have this ability, but staff do sometimes too, depending on the role that they're in. I know Jackie, for example, has done all kinds of different things. So faculty roles, part of it is because there's so much work to do at the university that it can't all get done ever. Which means if a faculty member says, I've been doing this and this and this and this, and I am just worn out by it, could I do something different? The answer is often yes. Part of it can be like you're tenured and you've been teaching and teaching and teaching and trying to catch up with your work, and now your department needs a department chair. That's not an easy job, but it's a different job. It has different stressors, and sometimes that change can help to refresh you. Gives you new ideas to do new things. You teach a little less, you focus more on this, and then after you've been doing that for a while, you may want to switch back. I worked with a really amazing department chair who was administratively very gifted, by the way. Like, she was a really good boss. So people were always asking her to do administrative things. And she used this as burnout control. She said, sometimes I just get tired of the students. So then I do something where I can push some papers around for a while. So she would teach a full load, and then she would department chair for a few years, and then she would go back to teaching a full load, and then she was the chair of faculty assembly, and then she just this kind of flexible flow helps us to stay fresh in the kind. None of those are easy, but to stay fresh in the kinds of stressors that we're trying to balance. Another way that we can exercise control is through meaningful work. And for this one, there was a research study that I want to point to. So Tate Chenefelt and colleagues studied approximately 500 physicians, and they asked the physicians what aspect of their work was most meaningful to them. For some, it was teaching medical students. For others, it was doing research. For others, it was working with patients. And according to the authors, no matter what activity was specifically meaningful to respondents, the amount of their work week focused on that activity had a strong inverse relationship to burnout. In fact, physicians who spent 20% or more of their time in their most meaningful activity had half the burnout rate as those who did not. 20% of their time in meaningful activity, not 100%, just 1 day a week. So that's my question for you then. What work do you find the most rewarding or meaningful in your work, in your role, in your current role on campus? And can you carve out at least 20% of your time for that activity? So let's spend 2 minutes on this. Just make a note of what you think is the most rewarding part of your current role. And I actually do have a stopwatch for this, so I don't completely lose track of time. 2 minutes. Thirty more seconds. Okay, would anyone like to share for this one?
I'm happy to share.
Go,
Oh,
Tim.
sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. The work I find most rewarding is when I can work closely with students because I feel I'm also Tim. I'm an assistant professor in sociology. Um, so I just started this past fall, but one of the things that I find most rewarding is when students approach me and when I like work on special topics, research interests that I have, so I can bridge my teaching, but also like I can bring my technical skills as like a survey methodologist too, and help them sort of create their own projects while also sort of doing my own research on that topic too. Um, and yeah, I think that just kind of the part where I find most rewarding because I do like thinking about the previous question that I had too. It sort of re-energizes me and kind of helps me avoid burnout too because I don't feel so isolated in my own research and I can see other people, especially students, that find it worthwhile doing too. So yeah,
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
sure.
Can you carve out 20% at least to do that?
I think 15, I think is a more conservative number, but I think 20% too, because like, yeah, like down the road, maybe like having a sort of quasi type of lab where you have multiple students sort of working on the same thing. So yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Would anyone else like to share on this one?
I will.
Go ahead, Liz. Lizette.
Yeah, I'll share. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisette Alvarado. I work at the Office of International Education. So I'm Associate Director of Education Abroad, and I also coordinate programs to Latin America and a third-party provider programs called CEA CAPA. There's two things that I really, really love about my job. Number one is, of course, preparing students to study abroad. That assists them with their cultural development, understanding the world better, which is extremely important to me and to the work that I do. And number two is also preparing program coordinators that I supervise to ensure that they understand the role as international educators, not just the administrative portion of it, but really the essence of why it is that we send students to study abroad. Sometimes that can be forgotten. And my job is to bring them back in center, hopefully bring them back to the center to understand that international educators, our job is to really prepare the students to have the best experiences that they can abroad, and that's cultural, social, political, understanding themselves, and hopefully to be able to understand those countries and other people that they meet along the way while they're studying abroad. And then what was the second part? Can I carve 20% of my time for it? I try. Yeah, yeah, I do really try to bring as much as I can of that to every meeting that we hold, and also when we have the one-on-one meeting. So I don't know if I can do the 20% because there's so many administrative tasks to the job as well that the pretty part of what education abroad is not what the background part is, as far as how much administration takes place to be able to run programs all over the world. But the best part of it, sometimes it's hard to completely convey that to everyone. So it's always reworking your mind and purposeful, making it a purposeful management technique to bring at the forefront for all of us to be able to help our students grow.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll share one just because I think it's a nice counterexample. Because the thing that one of the things I find most meaningful about my work is what I call administrative writing, and I don't like it. So I find it meaningful, but it's not something I enjoy doing. But if I don't get time to do it, I notice like the almost an immediate impact, because a lot of the projects that I have to move forward require really focused administrative writing. So this is like the committee that's finally kind of come to the conclusion but needs the report, or the good idea that now has a grant call, or those kind of things. If you can't sit down and make solid progress in those kind of administrative writing tasks in my role, I can't move things forward. So I need to dedicate time to those to feel like the meaningful part of my role is really moving. So I think it's a good example of carving out time for meaningful activity, even though it's not like my favorite thing to do, because it will make me more satisfied and less burned out if I do it, even though it's not. And when I do, I feel better almost immediately. Like I did a thing and it took me 4 hours, and now I feel good because I did the thing I was supposed to do and I can see progress. Okay, what are we on to?
Can I say
Yeah.
something real quick? Sorry.
Yes, please. Yes,
Is there
please.
time? Okay. Hi, I'm Sam Rice, Mayor Rice, in the psychology department. I feel really fortunate actually and grateful because I feel like I get to spend more than 20% of my time doing what I really love in my job. And so I just wanted to say that. So that's really great to realize that. Woohoo! And I wish everybody had that kind of satisfaction, too. So I definitely feel fortunate. But I also realized that one of the things I also love about my job, which I feel like everyone, whether you're faculty, staff, like we all have this, that, we love learning, right? That's one of the reasons why we want to be, in a university atmosphere. And so I just had this idea of how I can engage and like actually create some extra time and to be able to be talking about methods. I'm a quantitative psychologist. and talking about it with my colleagues and stuff like that. So I just got a good idea from this as well. So.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, if you're like me, you better write it down right away, because otherwise it's gone. It's gone. Right?
Sounds good. I have it written down, but thank you for the reminder.
Well, that's what happens to me, certainly. Okay. For our next, oh, we've got another awkward Yeti comic here. So this is about carving out time. And if you can't read the list because your screen is too small or something, the hearts list is pet small animals, pet medium animals, and a horse. Dolphin, question mark, yes. Big animals too. So this strategy is around taking care of ourselves. So one of the aspects of burnout, remember we said exhaustion? Burnout is exhausting in many, many ways. And it's all the activities that you're doing that get you burned out that exhaust you in many ways. So it's partly about building your physical resilience so that you're more physically resistant to the effects of that exhaustion. Also building your social connections and building your life outside of work, because all of these aspects are ways that we can take care of ourselves. Building your social connections, for example, helps you to build a network around you that can provide support as social creatures. If our social connections start to dwindle, we can notice an effect on our mood almost immediately. And building your life outside of work. And I'll just say this one more time. You are not your job. This is something that's very hard to remember sometimes in academic settings, because we talk about higher ed as a transformational place for students. So it's very easy and attractive to see this as a mission and a calling that becomes really closely intertwined with the way that we value ourselves. But at the same time, your job is just a job. And what that means is if the university does something really dumb that you think is a terrible, terrible idea, that you think is bad for students, this is not your fault, and it is not something that you need to get wrapped up in, because it's not you and your family, it's just your job. It also means that if you have a supervisor that treats you badly, that is not okay, but you're also not, you don't have to stay here forever. You can complain about your supervisor. You can get things corrected. You can figure out if there's another place at the university that you could work. You can quit. All of those things are possible. Again, this is speaking from a very privileged position. All of us are highly educated, have workforce choices. Not everybody in the world can say that. But this is not your job, your life. This is your job. And although that might be a depressing message sometimes, I find it really a hopeful and encouraging message that you can exist without the university and the university can exist without you. This is a good thing. It's not your family. It's not your loved ones. It's just a job. So where are you excelling right now in your self-care? And what are your next steps in taking care of yourself? So we're going to do this for 2 minutes again. Starting. 30 more seconds. Hey, would anyone like to share here?
I could share something here.
Great.
Yeah, as far as building physical resilience and social connections, I've been taking time every day to make sure that I get physical activity and exercise in, just to clear my head, get my head out of the workspace environment. And I've also been trying to do more, charity work and work outside of the school. I recently started working at a food pantry once a week to try to build social connections and again also get some more physical activity. And my next step is to try to schedule more activity outside the school for connections and research. There's actually a conference taking place in Europe next year that I'm hoping to try and attend. So I'm in the process of trying to work through the logistics for making that happen.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Anyone else like to share?
All right, I'll share that. Well, through work, we did the Happiness Project book this year. I've been trying to implement some of those strategies into my personal life, and it's making sure you carve out time for like joy and play and focusing on personal relationships and stuff too. So I've been more intentional about also being present and in the moment. That yes, these things are here that I got to deal with, but right now Jackie doesn't have to deal with it. And
Yeah.
so being able to just appreciate the space that I'm in, the time that I'm spending, even with my book club and going out to eat with my mom and just finding those moments of joy. And, I might be going and traveling for a soccer game with a kid, but, it's exciting to watch them play. And so, seeing the perspective of, yeah, we might be running around and there's a lot of things, it's things that aren't going to be there forever, and to appreciate when they're in the moment.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, I will share again. I've got heart and brain again here. Look at that mental health bar. So this is to cue us about going outside, by the way, and taking a break from our phones. So this one, we're going to talk about some antidotes. And when I'm talking about antidotes, I mean things that there's good research support that they can make a significant difference in your mood and help to kind of rebuild your mental and mood resources quickly. So here's 4 of them. There are more, but here's 4. So one is an experience of flow, and this is based on Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi's research on creative experiences. So if you're familiar with flow, you don't have to listen to this part. But if you aren't familiar with flow, that experience where, like, if you play an instrument, for example, and you're practicing even something real hard, or you're playing something that you lose track of time and you're fully immersed in that experience. Or if you are creating art, or there are many activities in which someone experiences flow, but the main kind of pieces of it is that you lose yourself, you lose track of time, and you are fully immersed. Experiences of flow can help to improve your mood and reduce stress. So if you know how you experience flow, engaging in those activities on a regular basis. Group activities are another antidote. For example, people who regularly exercise get all kinds of benefits from that. We all know what those benefits are. But if you do it with a partner or a group, like a group class versus an individual one, there are additional other benefits that you get from it. Similarly, Michael mentioned volunteering at the food bank. Jackie mentioned her book club. You get additional benefits from that social interaction or as a group that you wouldn't get if you were doing it by yourself. And as a little bonus, you get a little bonus if you're doing something unified. So like everybody's exercising in the same way at the same time. Helps you to lose your sense of self to some degree. And it opens up your emotional experience more, which is one reason also in religious settings, people are often doing the same thing at the same time, like singing a song together. Being in nature is another antidote that can immediately change your mood. And humor. There's some really interesting research on the effect of humor on mood. There's some interesting research, for example, from done all kinds of interesting research. Roy Baumeister, the social psychologist, who was looking at experiences of self-control, like trying to make yourself do something, or willpower. And as a depleting resource, that the more you try and exercise willpower over a short period of time, the harder it is. But you can re-engage that through humor. So like if you take a pause and you laugh at something, so work is getting stressful and you take a moment to look at some cat videos, that actually is adaptive, as long as you don't spend an hour looking at cat videos. Music, absolutely. Is that? So we could, and I will just make a note here. My only recommendation here is don't use humor to feed the burnout monster, because we know that one piece of burnout is cynicism and trying to separate yourself emotionally. So if you're using cynical humor, like I'm upset with work right now, so I'm going to make a bunch of cynical comments or jokes about my colleagues, that's not going to make you feel less burned out. It's actually going to make you feel more burned out. So that's my one caveat there. These would be my cues, but since we've got 3 minutes left, you can just set these aside for now. Where are you excelling in your antidotes, and what would be your next steps? I'll skip that. I also wanted to share with you my one page on resources and references. If you're interested in some more very approachable resources for burnout. One is a 2-part webinar that the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity just did. The second part was literally yesterday. So, and it's already posted because they post theirs real fast. This one was from Rebecca Pope Ruark, who has made it her career to study academic burnout after a really severe episode of burnout herself, where she had to, like, for her own health, she had to quit her job and like recenter. And now she researches burnout and has published a book or two. One book, I think she's got two books. So the university has a membership to an NCFDD. If you're interested in accessing any of those resources, all you have to do is set up your own account with your university email, and you can freely access all of their resources. I also have a webinar through NCFDD, which focuses more on burnout, the concept of burnout, as well as a Tea for Teaching podcast. And Christina Moslock has a really nice YouTube presentation if you're interested in that. And then the other ones are references. So if you really want to read about it, you can read those things. But I think Rebecca Pope Ruark's webinar was really good. So I will share those with you. And I will put my link in the chat right now as soon as I copy it. So my presentation's available for you there, including that last slide with the links. So with our last couple of minutes, what is there a strategy that you'd like that has been successful to you or for you, or that you're thinking about that you think would be interesting for the group to hear about? Go ahead, Sam.
Hi, I just thought this activity, I wanted to promote it because it hits several of those boxes about exercising and doing it with other people and being synchronous and being out in nature. So I'm part of the Oswego Dragon Boating Club, and we meet many times a week down here in Brightbeck Park, right by the pier. And just if you want, and we go out dragon boating, it's free unless you want to become a member, which is just $50 for the whole season. We start in May, go to early October. It's a great, fun activity. You get to meet lots of nice people, be out in nature and exercise. And we're not super athletic about it. So it's not, if you're, new to it, you don't have to worry about performing or anything like that. So if you're interested, you can email me, samara.rice@oswego.edu, or you can just look up on Facebook, the Oswego Dragon Boating Club. But it sounds like it's going to be a really good, antidote to burnout. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. And I meant to say that, our conversation today focused on individual strategies, even though we know that burnout is a workplace phenomenon, not an individual phenomenon. We didn't talk about institutional strategies, but if you want to have a conversation around institutional strategies and burnout, that's certainly something that I'm sure John and I would be happy to organize. It's a much trickier conversation, as you might expect, because it involves a lot of brainstorming around some of the key areas like control and values and like trying to get the institution moving on it's a harder conversation because it's easy to say, well, here's 15 things you could do yourself. It's hard to do them, by the way, but it's easy to say it. But it's a lot harder to say, we're already doing what we think we can do at the university, but now let's set that aside. No, what could we really do? But if you want to do that, let me know and we'll organize a conversation for that, see what we can do. Is there any other strategy that you would like to share while we still have 1 minute?
Well, speaking to your previous comment about institutional strategy, the math department for a few years now has been having tea time once a week where all the faculty and we invite as many students in the math department. I'm sure we never turn away students from other departments as well to just come by and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and talk with us, talk with each other, just unwind a little bit. It's a group activity. We get a little bit of humor in there, or get a humor amongst ourselves, just to see how we're all doing and how everything's going and stuff like that. I think that's been effective for just making sure we all can unwind a little bit and see how everyone's doing, that sort of thing.
Michael, I think that's a fabulous example. I'm glad you shared it. I'll tell you what because it's really small. I get up 2 hours earlier than I used to. Does that sound terrible? I also go to bed 2 hours earlier. So it all works out. It's because I was spending all evening every night feeling like I had to do my email because I get a lot of email. And some of you might know I don't always respond to it that fast because I get a lot of email. So either I was spending all evening feeling guilty that I wasn't doing my email, or I was spending all evening doing my email every day. And that wasn't healthy for me. So now I tell myself I'm going to get up 2 hours earlier and I'm going to do my email for 2 hours in the morning, which is still not enough time. But I'm not allowed to do it at night anymore unless there's a critical project, which releases me from all of the guilt. It doesn't make me more or less effective. I just feel a lot less guilty, which is a nice thing. So sometimes individual strategies are, it's looking at your own life and saying, where can I let go of the crap that I am holding on to and keep doing my job. Okay, it is such a pleasure to see all of you. If you feel free to drop me a line if any of those resources don't work for you. I see a few people interested in an institutional session. So let's see if we can pull something together sometime, John.
There's also a lot going on with the wellness groups on campus and stuff too, whether it's doing the book clubs and other things too. So that could be shared out. It took me a minute to find the link, but
Jackie,
Brian
can
Wallace is the contact.
say like 2 more sentences about that? You just heard, I just talked over her, but she said Brian Wallace is the contact. Say like 2 more things.
And they do things such as like there's like yoga classes and other things that you can take. They offer like in Lee Hall and stuff. I think Fridays people were getting together and do like pickleball or something. But there's like physical, emotional, all sorts of wellness activities going on. So I'll try to date that up. I'll send it your way if you want to include it.
Excellent. And all of that is free for faculty and staff. And things like the exercises classes are just for faculty and staff. They're not the student ones. So if you want to do yoga, but you don't want your students sitting next to you to do it, They're there for that.
Bet.
Thank you, Jackie. Sam, I see you.
Yeah, sorry, could we Google to find out information about the wellness classes, or how could I find out more info about that?
I'm going to put Brian's email in the chat. There was a listserv going on that you can get updates on events and opportunities, and there should be an email going out probably the first week of classes. So I'll put at least Brian's contact information there, so you can reach out and get on that listserv.
Thank you.
And I'm
Yes.
assuming there's a website for it too, but I haven't had a chance to look it
I
up.
am too, and I'm forgetting the name of like what they named it. So yes, we will find it and I'll share it with all of you. If you signed up for the session, I'll take a screenshot. So I get all of you and I'll send it to all of you. There we go.
If you didn't sign up, you could always still sign up to get that email. Just go to the registration link.
I'll make sure to get it to you because yes, there is a website and they do have a listserv. So when Brian has new announcements or new programs, it goes out to people who've said that they want that information. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, John. We appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
And
Great.
wrangling all of us.
Thank
Good
you
to see all
very
of you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.